All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Friday Mastermind. Every Friday, 9 o'clock, we are bringing amazing leaders. Sometimes it's a top producing loan officer or or real estate professional. Today, we have an author, a leader. I will bring in Chris in just a minute. Before I do that, Mr. Bookspan, anything you want to say to frame the call or welcome people?
Well, I mean, we're going to be talking about overcoming adversity, and I think that is something that is an opportunity for all of us to learn and listen and figure out, where we're at. I know some people are just freaking crushing it, but that's the exception, not the rule. And I know that others are doing good, doing really good, or not doing good. And so I think this will be a fun conversation. I've had some conversations with Chris in the past, and I think it'll be a valuable conversation for all of you. So stay tuned. And, Deborah was just talking about her victorious Allen High School. So welcome, Deborah.
That's all I can talk about since I can't talk about the Cowboys right now. But yes, we are undefeated, perfect season. Doesn't mean that it didn't come with its own struggles and adversity. And that's the challenge that I want to task everyone who's listening today or even later on YouTube is this conversation is something that you guys could have with your clients or your agent partners, and you could host your own mastermind or a class like this that, especially as we lean into the holidays, and for some, they could be going through the holidays the first time without a loved one, or maybe with a divided family, or maybe with an illness, or maybe their NFL team didn't make it or isn't doing well. Whatever it is.
Who day? Who day?
Oh my gosh, don't even,
Yeah,
Dave.
so by the way, to all you Cincinnati fans, my condolences. That was a tough loss last night.
Yes. Anyways, you guys could do this very masterclass for your clients and agent partners about overcoming adversity, because it's something that, none of us are immune to. So I'm excited to dive in and to see what change you guys can take from this message and implement locally in your own communities.
All right, guys. So I'm going to bring on our guests. I do want to put a little bit of a frame in this because we're in mortgage. Most people on this call, you are mortgage professionals. Maybe you're a real estate professional. Your loan officer shared the link to this video. But I mean, we know adversity, and by the way, we know good times. Like we had that COVID bubble where we had a $4 trillion market, and both real estate and mortgage professionals thrived. We have had 2 years of struggle. If you're an executive at a mortgage company, profitability crisis. We thought last year rates were going to come down, and there was this like May 10th, and it was going to be amazing, and dead cat bounce. Rates went up the whole time. And then we finally entered a new cycle, and the Fed lowered interest rates, and we started taking rate and term refis. Things started getting good again, and then rates are like, I talked to Daniel Saw today because I'm doing a meeting with him, and he's like, Dave, put a 7 on it. Like we're quoting rates at 7 when we were quoting rates at 6.2. So by the way, those are like little issues because we're human beings and we all die. And so all of us on this call, we have our worst days ahead of us, and we have our best days ahead of us. At least that's how I like to see it. And we know we're going to have adversity. So no better than Chris Welton. He is an author. He is a leader. He has had real adversity in his life. He's going to talk about that. And we're just going to talk about overcoming adversity. If you are in chat and you want to have a question, like this is a mastermind, so put questions in chat. We will get to those. If you just chime in, get to that. And then before I bring Chris on, I want you guys to use those little reactions and give me a thumbs up. Because when we bring Chris on, give him an emoji, give him some type of hand. I'm going to actually give Chris a heart. Chris, welcome to the Mortgage Coach, Trust Engine, Win by Noon, Plug and Play Mastermind. Welcome, brother.
What an honor. I truly appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to get on here. I mean, it's amazing to be able to be on a call with people that I look up to in the industry and have for so long. And it's before I get into my story real quick, I want to say something. I met Dave Savage in an elevator in like 2006 in Palm Springs. That's where our first interaction ever was. Todd and I were on an airplane. I didn't know who Todd was, and we're talking back and forth, waiting for the plane to take off. He's in front of me, and I find out we're going to the same place. And then Deborah sits at me at that event when I get there, which was the crazy, like we literally sat next to each other at that event. So it's amazing how all these things start to come together. Um, I guess it's a fortunate thing, but sometimes an unfortunate thing that I'm very skilled at dealing with adversity and how to figure out the ways to learn and create opportunity from that. It started at a young age for me. I was born with a limb difference. My mother was a heroin addict and took heroin when she was pregnant with me. So I already had the odds stacked against me when I was born. But early on, I figured out that I had an advantage in life because I was different. And I looked at adversity as opportunity as things came at me. Now, I've been through some major adversity in my life besides that. Unfortunately, we lost my son, CJ, in 2020. And that was a massive amount of adversity you could ever face, in my opinion. Um, the lessons I learned from that was I had to find other people to help through similar situations. I went on an 8-month path of darkness during that time period until I opened up my journal and it said, call Bill Hart at the top of the journal. I was supposed to call him right before this happened. So I called Bill. And Bill was my first coach ever in the mortgage space. Back in 2005, 2006, we started working together. So I called Bill and I told him what was going on, and he started coaching me again right away, helping me navigate some of those troubled times that I was facing and going through there. But I think it's important to understand, regardless of whatever adversity you face in life, we have to figure out a way to draw strength from that. Adversity, in my opinion, sometimes should be the goal. Like, we need to push ourselves to a point where we're going to face something adverse, because when we get through hard things, it prepares us for more hard things. And I was an originator in the space for a long time, an executive in a mortgage company for a long time. And I understand what you're going through currently. I had a front row seat in 2008. I had a front row seat in the mortgage space until August 31st of last year, when I exited and went all in on my coaching company and my speaking, and was fortunate enough to write a best-selling book. I spoke recently on a stage with John Maxwell in South Carolina, and I talked about adversity. And I had another spot that happened to me a few weeks ago. I had some chest pain, went to the hospital. I ended up in the hospital for 5 days. 5 days. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. All the testing, anything you could imagine, I've been through. There's tests I didn't even know were possible, like these tests that were being done, like 2 hours in this machine, an hour in this machine, and they still had no idea what was going on. But I had an awakening the second night I was in the hospital at 1 a.m. I woke up to the sounds of a code blue. The patient next to me did not make it in the room next to me. About 20 minutes later, a patient down the hall code blue and didn't make it either. I'm 52 years old. I'm not ready to go yet. So I had a very spiritual conversation at that point that, you get me out, I'm going to impact more lives than I ever have before. And that's what the mission started up and fired me up again. I got out of the hospital. They still don't know what's wrong, but I was sharing with the guys before I got on here that I'm feeling great today. I was in the gym today, so I feel good. But I feel that was an awakening for me and a calling to just bring more positive impact to people and help them get through adversity, because any adversity you've been in life, and if you're on this call, guess what? You made it through it. You made it through it. And I think sometimes we don't look at it that way. I continually get into a tough spot, and then I reach back and I pull strength from the back on things that I've been able to get through, other adversity I've gotten through, right? And you can do the same with people in your life or around you. But I've had this power to be able to overcome adversity and help others in the same way. And it's a blessing and sometimes a curse.
Wow. Well, what a powerful, story, and amazing what you've accomplished. Yes. Thank you for the hearts, everybody. Let's give Chris some love. Just being transparent about the adversity you've come through. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of vulnerability. Not a lot of people do that. So thank you for just bringing light to our industry and doing it here. Todd, I've got some questions, but anything you want to say, or any questions you have before we just start unpacking this?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that sort of come to mind, and first off is obviously thanks for sharing, right? Because some of that stuff I was aware of, and some of it, I'm just learning now, and I do think there's, the thing I wrote down was, you said that you can create opportunity out of adversity, right? So I think a lot of us need to be thinking right now, what opportunity we can we be creating out of our situations, right? Your adversity is probably a lot different than what Chris's is recently, but it could be similar, and so really be thinking around that. And then I love the whole thing that you said is find others to help. And I think that that's really the key, right? And so, you all have friends, you all have people, there's professionals out there, right, that are in there in the therapy space. And we have, other times where you have a coach, and the coach serves as a therapist sometimes. And, Bill Hart was my first coach as well. And we were emailing this morning. So it's kind of fun to have that serendipity. But I think the bottom line is this, right? I mean, you're here to share something I think that everyone needs to hear. We get people on here all the time talking about how rosy life is, and yeah, okay, well, I didn't do as many loans as I thought, but hey, here's how I'm crushing it over here. And so I think this is just a great conversation. So really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Deborah, anything you want to say or ask before I got a question, but you go first.
Well, I mean, one, thank you for sharing the story since birth, the adversity that you've had to overcome. And I'm curious of the lessons that we sometimes try to avoid that then keep repeating until we learn the hard lesson. And for me, my most painful moments were like the best portals of transformation. Now I'm hard-headed and I'm stubborn and I don't like to ask for help, and I'm great at wearing a mask and pretending everything's okay, and I could be drowning. So one of the things that you said that stuck out to me was that you had Bill Hart written on the top of your page. And so I want all of you to think about who's that one person that you could call, or that maybe you should have their name written down. That way you never get stuck feeling like this is only you and that you're so alone. And that can sometimes take us to some deep, dark places. So my first takeaway is making sure we take care of our physical, mental, and emotional states. Like physical, obviously, we got to stay, like you talked about, working out this morning. And the more we work on ourselves, we can't be our best if we're not fueling our bodies with the best nutrition and the physical activity. And that really starts with your morning routine. And for me, that's what I love about the Win by Noon planner is I make it really clear what are my top 3 success items on my list and what am I grateful for. And I make this part of my morning ritual of having my plan. It starts the night before, and it just gives you that pulling force to get out of bed and make sure that you've time blocked for some time for yourself, some reading time for your mental state, allowing yourself to emotionally feel things that you need to feel, but also make sure you have that anchor of support that you can trust and go to.
I love that.
I love it. So I know I have with clarity, I would love that over the course of the next 40 minutes that we end up with a playbook on how to turn adversity into opportunity. And we have, like strategies, philosophies. So I know I'm gonna, whether you go into that next, because I know,
Yeah.
you've got a book, you speak on stage, you have some messages you want to deliver. I want to get that, but just know before this is over, I want to do that. And I do want to get your take on one, because I've got two. I mean, I've got a lot of beliefs and philosophies that have helped me overcome adversity, but I have two that are like they're both the North Star. I'm going to share one of
Yeah.
them now, and I'll share the other one later. But I'd love to get your take on it. I mean, one of them is, have you read the book The Gap in the Game?
Yes.
I read that book. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before, and it was like my book of the year. And I think I naturally am a thinker where I focus on the gain versus the gap. But I mean, like every human, and I do think there's some humans that kind of naturally focus on the gap versus the gain.
More
But
than
I,
more than don't,
more
Dave.
than don't. Like I do think that some of that is just like almost a hereditary or like a
Yeah.
personality type. But I have always found that while I think I'm a gap for no, a gain first guy, like I am that gain, I really felt like being focused on that. And for anybody who hasn't read the book, to just simplify the gap versus the gain is the gap is like thinking about what you haven't accomplished or what's missing from where we're at. And the gain is focusing on what you've accomplished. It's like from where you're at today to what you've done. And focusing on the gain is thinking about like, hey, maybe I'm not where I want, or maybe I'm not what I'm doing, but the more I think about what I have done, the more enthusiasm I'm going to have, the more happiness I'm going to have. And so, first of all, what are your thoughts on that gap versus the gain as being a tool? And do you have any philosophies around the gap and the gain?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely focusing on, if you could see my whiteboard, you could see where I measure every single month of my company and the growth. I'm more of a growth management guy than I am setting a massive goal. Um, and for me, it's about what I can do to be better every month. And then I'm one of those weirdos that has a definition of success for everything I do. Like I have a definition of success to get on this call. When I have a dinner tomorrow night with my wife on date night, there's a definition of success, what that looks like. And I think that keeps me focused on the positivity, the opportunity that comes out of those events, right? And I think that's where it's being focused on that gain more than the gap. I've fallen into that gap before too, and I start comparing myself to other people. And why didn't I get that keynote at the Forward event? I don't know. You can ask Neil, maybe he's watching, but I do fall back in that sometimes.
Oh, we threw a
You
little
know,
shade there. Like
a
I
little
got
bit, a
that.
little bit.
I
I
got
text
that.
Neil almost every day, just so you
Neil,
know.
make
Yeah,
a note, Neil.
yeah, yeah. I text
Everybody who
Neil
knows
almost
Neil,
every
let him
day.
know that they need to have
Yeah,
Chris at the next Forward
exactly,
event. Like, let's let Neil
exactly.
know.
Yeah. So I do fall back like most people do, but I just have been able to ask for help. Like Deborah said, it took a long time for me to understand that. I was probably 40 before I really asked for help because I just didn't think that, you know, maybe I was too, I guess, lack of a better macho to ask for help. Right. Like, and I started asking for help and I realized that people cared, right. And they wanted to help you.
Yeah. So by the way, two points there, guys. First of all, we're building the playbook. If you have not read The Gap in the Gain, cannot emphasize enough that you do. Listen to the audiobook. It's a great audiobook. I did both. I read it and listened to it. And it's just a great tool. And then did you catch what he said? Like ask for help. Like, like you don't get what you don't ask for. And so if
Why do y'all
that's
think people don't ask?
fear.
I think,
They
yeah, for fear. Yeah. Fear of being
Fear
rejected.
of.
they
So,
negotiate their way out of it, like if you want something, ask for it.
and Deborah, they don't think they're worthy of the help.
Mhm.
A lot of times. I want to, and this isn't me, well, I guess it is kind of a shameless plug on my book, but what I did a couple years ago is I realized I needed to change my circle. I needed to upgrade the circle of the people I was in because I found myself being at the top of the circle. And then I'm like, okay, well, how do I connect with people that I need help with on that gain, right? Like I need help to get there. Who is it? So I created this list at an airport. I had a 9-hour flight delay. And I created a list I call the One Jordan list. And then I got their shoe sizes and I sent them one Jordan shoe and a handwritten note that said, if you want the other shoe, then give me a call. And I was able to connect with people that I would never get introduced to or be in that circle with. Now, most of them have been great. They were in my book. There's some good stuff in there, but there were several that I connected with that were not who I thought they were, which was great too. You learned from that. But I now have these people I can message and talk to that I'm in their circle. I sent one Jordan shoe to John Maxwell. That's how I met John Maxwell. That's how when he walked off stage last week, he walked over and said, Chris, I love you. I'm so proud of you. John Maxwell said that to me, right? Because I was defined on whom I wanted to be in circles with, who I wanted to connect with, and then I went after it. And that's why I said, well, I got to write the book. I got to write a book about that. But that has kept me on that gain a lot. And now I had a call with one of my I have two coaches right now, a guy named Adam Roach and a guy named Ben Newman. But yesterday I was on a call with Adam and he said, Chris, when's the last time you were sending out one Jordan? What's your list look like? I said, well, I've got my list over here on my whiteboard, but I haven't sent a shoe out in like 45 days. He said, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm getting a little complacent. Like I need to get back in that mindset of the game and back in the mindset of connecting with other people. And I mean, like my list now has Dana White, Pat McAfee, Dave Poitner, Joe Rogan. Like that's my list now,
Wow.
right? So like
Baller.
it's changed so much from the first shoe I ever sent out to a guy named Damon West, right? So it's that list has changed, but I feel confident that I'll connect with those people. Like I just know I'll figure out a way to get there.
Okay,
All right, how do you get to a shoe size? That's what my brain just stuck on that before I can listen to the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most of the time it's because I know somebody who knows somebody who can get their shoe size.
Love it.
I have a
All
pretty
right.
big network. Like I know a lot of people. I'm very blessed to have a big network when it comes to that. Or I meet them, like met John Maxwell at the VI. I always buy the VIP ticket to the events so I can meet the people I want to meet in the green room. And that's why fly first class. That's how I met Todd actually, but flying first class. So you walk into I
Todd flies
walk into
first
John
class.
Maxwell.
I would not have
I thought
thought
he
Well,
he
was
was
he
too
first
did
cheap.
from
class.
Phoenix to Vegas. He did from Phoenix to Vegas.
Okay,
So
It
no
was
big
it was
deal.
probably
All
a
right.
free upgrade, but let me just
I was
pretend I'm a
gonna say,
baller
so
for
That
his
cheap.
sounds
age.
more like the
Help me
Todd I
out.
know. That sounds more like
hey,
the Todd I know.
but so like I asked John Maxwell, I said, "What's your shoe size?" And he told me.
There
I
you go.
asked Ed
Bold
Milet,
question.
"What's your shoe size?" And he told me. And I asked Gary V, "What's your shoe size?" And they told me. Right. And
I
then I
feel like
just,
I wouldn't be able to get away with that. They would think there could be a
well,
hidden message
correct.
behind
I
that
get it. I
question.
get it. Same reason I've never asked a woman for her shoe size. I just feel like it's
Yeah.
like a foot fetish weird thing. So I just have never done that, which, I guess that's my limiting beliefs. Shame on me for doing that. But yeah,
But
so
your
that's how I get
story
into that.
started with your flight delay. And so you could have just been all like
Yeah.
pity party for a 9-hour flight delay. Instead, you made
Mhm.
your one Jordan list,
Yeah.
took action, and look where it took you.
All
Yeah.
right, all right, all right. We gotta pivot a little bit. So everybody, I know this was billed as overcoming adversity, and I promise to get a playbook, but we gotta go like eight
This,
to 10 minutes on because I want everybody to connect the dots what he did. Like everybody on this call, you want to do more loans. And if you're a realtor, you want to sell more homes. And one of the places he just went was how he wants to be on big stages and and have big influence. So he's created the elephant list. So if you're in the mortgage business, the list of all the dream team, the people you want to do business with, he's created his dream team. He's going after it. Some of you knew about his book, One Jordan. Some of you didn't. So Chris, let's speak to that for like 10, 15 minutes. Let's make sure everybody gets
okay.
some inspiration and strategy to build their dream list and to
Yeah.
know a little bit more about your book because this is just too good and too on point with the market right now.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you got to take the time to define on who, for me, it was who did I think I wanted to learn from, right? I wanted to shortcut it. Like I said, I'm 52 years old. I don't have 20 years to learn how to do something else because I don't want to be doing this in 20 years. At this rate, I want to be relaxing more. I do have an 11-month-old son, so I need to be able to spend time with him too. But for me, it's defining who I want to be in relationships with that maybe I can't get past the gatekeeper. Is there something bold I can do to connect to them? It doesn't have to be one Jordan, but it can be something else that sets you apart and gets you that 15-minute phone call. Now, at first, the goal was the phone call. Then I realized there's a lot more to it than that. What do I need to how can I figure out a way to turn that into a relationship? How can I learn from them, get them on my podcast, right? And then I wrote chapters in my book about a lot of them. And I think the importance of that list is really figure out who you want to connect with and why you think you want to connect with them. Don't be upset when they don't respond. Ed Milet never responded to me. Gary V never responded to me. And what I do is I send him the second shoe anyways, and I send him a signed copy of my book. That's what I do just to stay in. Maybe one day we'll run into them. But don't be upset if they don't respond. Don't be upset if they're not who you think they are when they do respond. Because I have a few of those stories too. But the ones that matter, the ones that count, the ones that say, man, this was a bold statement, like this is a big deal. I used to do this thing in the early 2000s that helped me in the mortgage space. And I want to say I learned it from Todd Duncan, maybe. So those of you were around when back in the early 2000s, I used to do the handwritten note with the $20 bill in it with the time traps book, and I'd send that to high-end realtors and builders, and it would say, basically, here's $20 for the cost of your time to read this note. I'm going to call you at 3 o'clock on Thursday to show you how you can save more time and money by using your time traps book. And I would do that. And I landed a lot of big accounts. This is, in my opinion, is a whole nother level, right? So like the invitations I get to events that I would never have gotten, the conversations that I have, and this isn't me bragging. This is just saying that if you do something and you're committed to it, the results you can get are crazy. But the people I have in my phone now that I can text or call, like I call John Maxwell right now and just have a conversation, right? But that's helped me grow and get where I need to go. So if you're in the mortgage space right now and there's realtors you're trying to connect with, or somebody who's killing it in a different market that you can't get in touch with, figure out a way to make a bold statement like that.
All right. So let's real quick, audience and Todd and Deborah, I want to just riff real quick and let's call it, bold ideas, big, bold, innovative ideas that create wow and opportunities to create connection. And obviously the one Jordan is an idea. I think he's, get the shoe size, buy something that, how much do they cost per shoe? Like what's the
I'm usually about $130 is I'm the basic Jordan ones usually. Yeah.
So that's the budget. Let's just say $130, or less. What Todd, any ideas on what people are doing right now in this market that are big, bold, innovative, attention-getting ideas? And if you're in the, watching this in Zoom, you're watching this on YouTube, and you've got a big, bold, $130 or less idea to get a meeting, share that. I would just love to hear what anybody is doing. And Todd, you got any ideas? And then coming to you, Deborah.
I haven't heard of anyone doing anything unique in this market. Maybe that's, kind of the blinding flash of the obvious, right? Is that not only am I not hearing of loan officers doing anything outside of the ordinary, I don't even hear them doing the ordinary. Like I've heard the Todd Duncan book story. I did that too, and it was successful. I'm not even hearing of loan officers doing that, which I would call basic right now. Is still effective, but I'm still just blown away because the whole idea of sending a shoe is just, way out there. Like it's such a unique idea. And so absolutely would love to hear what you all think are some other, ways that you could do something, super unique. My wife is really like, she's been replaced by an alien. I think she's really into football now. And so like this morning, she turns on whatever NFL Good Morning Football show, and they're wearing a shirt about the Giants quarterback, Daniel Jones, and that he was like the guy that they said like ran people over this week. And so apparently if you play Madden, like that guy runs, now the Daniel Jones runs faster and runs people over this week for a week. I didn't know that was a thing, but they sent that shirt to the guy who is a gamer in Madden who they wanted to do a video on it. And guess what? They sent him the shirt. He put it on. He showed up on TV. He created the video. So, maybe that's a creative idea. Could you come up with a really cool shirt that you could send somebody that would be unique, that would get them to think?
And real quick, guys, before we go on and before you go, Deborah, I do want to put a little compliance alert out that
Yes, please.
Check, make sure whatever you do, you've checked with your compliance team. And I do know that to give something like this in exchange for business is a compliance problem. I do think there's something you can do with a book, but I'll also bet you, between podcasting, you heard Chris, like I wanted to learn from this person. I'm trying to get someone's attention because I want to learn from this person. My guess is there is a compliant way to do this, but please, like compliance alert, giving realtors $150 gifts in exchange for business is a problem. But with that said, Deborah, any big, bold, and maybe we should lower the budget to whatever's compliant. Like I'm pretty sure a book under $20 is compliant. Any ideas that kind of feed off of what Chris is sharing here?
I had a really good meeting with Dino, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's in your area.
Dino with a K. Dino.
Yes. Yes. K something.
It's a big Greek name. Cool dude.
Yes.
Awesome.
And just,
mortgage professional.
I was blown away by, he has started a new mortgage company, and he's really going deep on kind of back to the basics of genuinely connecting with his people, so the clients that they serve, and having a systematic way that's still very custom to let his clients or partners know, like, hey, I see you, I hear you. And it's a lot of that is done through social. So again, starting with your who, and he has a unique way of ranking his database, which we actually interviewed him on the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. You guys can find that interview. I think it was Todd and I, and he discusses that strategy of how he does a 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star for his database. And then by utilizing that list, he has a team that will use social to figure out what's important to that person. That way they're not just sending, a random gift that wouldn't be beneficial to that person, or, sending champagne and they may not drink alcohol, and they really want it to be just custom. And obviously that's done through intentionality and with focus. And I think with the increase of AI and automation, it can cause people to participate less and just kind of feel like they're on this, machine where you're sending a gift, but it has your logo all over it. And it feels like you're using it for promotional reasons, not for connecting and like truly appreciating and like falling in love with your clients and re-falling in love with them in a genuine way that matters to them.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Guys, I put his name in chat. You could Google him. This is how you spell his name. I've interviewed him myself. Deborah and Todd interviewed him. Recently, he was interviewed on the Dave Lycan show. He's got a YouTube channel. He's a mortgage coach. He's done thousands of mortgage coaches. Here's an interview I did with him 3 years ago. How he turns his advice into a competitive advantage. By the way, great call out, Deb. He's got a compliant gifting program that in the way that he honors customers and just consistently, does little things like, at app, they get a Starbucks, and I'm making this up. I don't know if they get a Starbucks, gift card, but he's got things. And by the way, every one of his consumers gets a mortgage coach. He's, very big on financial literacy and impact. So he's doing things that are just services, and he's doing things that are gifts. And it all comes down to he stands out. People feel appreciated. People feel loved. He creates amazing experiences for people. So shout
The
out to
biggest
Dino.
difference too, Dave, is he does it from the moment they apply. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
most people wait to launch the gifting program till after their loan closes and
Right.
funds.
Yeah, he's got a whole transactional program, and then it's a multi-year, like very well thought out. In fact, Paul, let's make a note to reach out to Dino and get him on a mastermind sometime is whenever he's around, and we'll drill him. Sound like a game? All right,
David,
so
it reminds me of one of the local groups here puts on an event called Fate. It's a real estate group, and it's from agent to entrepreneur. And I've been part of it for the last 2 years, and it's normally 3 to 4 real estate agents who get up and talk about their business. And they switched it up this last one. It was the week before last, and they truly had entrepreneurs on there. So they had a husband and wife who had an air conditioning company. They had a gentleman who had a pest control and carpet cleaning business. I interviewed a guy who has a roof business, like, an 8-figure roof business he's built in 5 years, making roofs sexy again, which, hey, I didn't even know roofs could be sexy. And then they had someone who's a vegetable farmer, unique vegetables that you would find at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. And it was really interesting to hear, in particular, the gentleman who owned the pest control company. He was maybe in his early 30s. He just had a very large 8-figure, at least it sounded like, if not bigger, exit from selling his business. But he really talked about how he went all in. He said most of his competitors weren't willing to do customer gifting programs. He said, number one is that most of his customers didn't know the acquisition cost of a client. And then number two, he said, well, even if they knew it, they weren't willing to spend anything near that to keep that client in the future and to get that client to refer more business. So he created a gifting program where he actually spent more on the clients that he had to keep them than he did actually to acquire them. And it was just really fascinating. And, just kind of makes me think this is a really interesting conversation to think about how do we retain, clients as well. So total rabbit hole off in the other direction. Maybe we'll bring one of those guys on here to talk, but I do think it's a matter of just thinking differently.
So here's what we're gonna do now, guys. So we went down, we got you a business development idea. And by the way, we'll talk more before this is over, Chris, like about your book, make sure people know what it is. I have a feeling it's a book that everybody in this community needs to read. I have the book, highly recommend it. But I just had a message come in from Coach Bill Hart. I had texted Bill while we were talking and said, I was interviewing you currently on our mastermind, and what is one question that we need to ask Chris? And so I'm not going to leave you hanging, but here's a question that Coach Bill thought would be really good to ask you. And he said, "What was the switch that flipped in your mind that triggered your all-in approach to life? What's the switch that triggered all that?"
I'll give you the person's name that triggered all that. His name is Rene Rodriguez. Renee gave me the skills and taught me how to tell my story, and almost gave me permission to share stuff I've been hiding for years. And then I felt like things just dramatically changed after that. After being in my first Amplify and just being clear and understanding that I had a responsibility to share my story with other people who need to hear it because it'll help them get through challenging times. And that was the switch. That's when it
By the way,
flipped.
was Bill at that Amplify? Was that
He was not, but I called Bill and said, "Hey, should I spend this much money to go to Amplify?" And he said, "Yes, you should." And I still didn't. I went to like the first AmpCon. I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll do it." And then it was on sale, so of course I had to do it there. And so I ran over and bought my first Amplify. And then I was fortunate enough to be in the same room with a guy who's become one of my closest friends, a guy by the name of Brian Covey. And
Oh
Brian
my God.
Covey and I have become like really close from that event. And it just was amazing. But Rene Rodriguez gave me the power to tell my story and the importance of it. And that changed my life.
Well, first of all, Paul, let's make a note. It's been too long since we've had the one and only Rene Rodriguez in this community. And I've told a lot of people I went to Amplify in January of 2020, literally a month or two before COVID shut down the world. And it was truly one of the most powerful personal development experiences of my life, and he made me share something that I had never talked about in public. And, I cried. I mean, it was like
Yeah.
therapy. Um, what was because in Amplify, there's a lot of, it's a 2-day workshop with 12 or less people, and there's different exercises and different things. What was the what was the thing you were doing? Like you said Amplify, but what was the thing at Amplify that you were doing when the switch triggered? Like, because I know what it was for me.
Um, I mean, when we had to define, like, you had come up with 5 words that describe you. And then when he asked me did I have a lighthouse or a
Foghorn.
foghorn? Yeah, in my life. And I said I had a foghorn. And that's when I went down the path of being raised by a drug addict, right? And then I never really talked about that. Like my best friend since I was 8 years old is a guy named Jason Purcell. Some of you guys know him in the mortgage space. We've been friends since we were 8, right? And he didn't know some of those things. And when I went to
Wow.
give my first keynote about it, I practiced and let him listen. And he's like, "I didn't know a lot of those things you're sharing right now." And we've been
Wow.
friends since we were little kids. He gave me permission to share those things. And here's the other thing too, though. I felt comfortable sharing with them because my mom had passed away in 2019. I didn't share those stories with people until my mom was gone because I did feel like she'd been through enough as a drug addict and enough having the mental illnesses that she didn't need the burden of me sharing that and feeling bad about it. So I intentionally didn't share those things until she was gone.
Dude, that's crazy. That, by the way, I had, really the biggest breakthrough. And I in my 20s, I went to a Tony Robbins event, and it really changed my life, and I had some major breakthroughs. But the thing at the Rene Rodriguez event, it sounds like it was similar. It was like that first day when everybody goes on stage, and Rene told me, I was there to like get better at selling Mortgage Coach, like
Yeah.
like telling the Mortgage Coach pitch on stage. Like that was my why for going to the event. And when I walked up there, he's like, "You can't say the word Mortgage Coach. You can't talk about Mortgage Coach." And then he made me go like, at why you got to tell your why you founded Mortgage Coach. And then I started like just getting personal, like who I was. And then there was an experience that I can now talk about without crying, but I'm, ADD and dyslexic. And I, without going down a whole rabbit trail, I had never told people, like, it was a childhood wound when I was in, I think it was third grade. I would have to go up to the front of the class and take Ritalin. And like, I don't think they do that to kids anymore, but like at lunchtime, I'd come up and my back to the class. People probably weren't all watching me, but I felt like the whole class was watching me. And I have to take this Ritalin, and then I'd have to like prove that I swallowed it. And like it was a childhood wound that
Yeah.
was part of my story. And anyways, I couldn't even tell the story without crying. So by the way, everybody listening to this, part of overcoming adversity and becoming your most authentic self is going deep on yourself. And so I hope a takeaway and a tool, like we've got the gap in the gain, we got to ask him for help. And then Chris wouldn't be on this stage right now. I wouldn't be interviewing him right now if he didn't tell that story about his mom and be able to tell that story about his mom without crying. And then I'm pretty sure, that you mentioned that you've lost a child, which is every person's worst nightmare. You probably couldn't tell that story without crying, but you've overcome that fear. So super
Yeah,
intense.
that I tell you, my wife and I are involved in a not-for-profit called the Finley Project that helps mothers who suffer infant loss, and they were a big help with that, being part of that. And now we've started they're creating a spot to help the dads, because that was my thing. I felt so alone after my son, like there wasn't anything for the dads, right? It was all for the moms. But I share that story. I speak about that story a lot. I do podcasts about my son CJ, and I talk about him a lot. I'm actually filled out an application last week for a TED Talk to tell the whole story about how CJ passed and what happened. So, um, look, I'm glad we've gone down the path we have so far, because these are the tools that I use to help fight through adversity, and they just naturally appeared in the conversation. I love how the flow happens, right? Like learning to overcome the stuff from your past and share the story and the responsibility that there is there to help other people, helps you fight through the negative and the bad times as well.
Yeah, agreed. By the way, Paul Hurley, oh, that was just to the message, but Paul shout out. That's pretty funny, bro. The Flintstone age, he called what I survived. I've never
Mhm.
heard that term before, but I did survive it. And by the way, all of those things made me stronger and better. Just crazy shit that we've all made it through. So
Well, I
let's,
think too, but the choice was, Dave, you made the choice for them to make you better, right? Let them, because so many people have those things happen and they go back and relive them every day, and it creates massive adversity in their life and they never find a path through. So you have to realize that those things happen for a reason. They created these calluses to make you stronger to deal with the stuff coming your way.
well, here goes my next tool. And then Todd and Deborah, we're gonna go to Chris to share another strategy or tool. We'll go to you, Todd, and then Deborah. And guys, we got 15 minutes. Let's give everybody like a list of turn adversity into opportunity. Here's the playbook. So by the way, my next one is another practice that I think I intuitively did, but I interviewed Sarah Middleton 9 years ago. There's actually a YouTube, I think it's called Overcoming Adversity. I'll share a link down below. We were actually, it was the first time I did a live interview. It was at Sales Mastery 9 years ago. And it was Sarah's overcoming adversity story. And she had lost I think her daughter was a teenager.
Your daughter, yeah.
She had lost her daughter 4 years before that. And she wanted to share this story. Like she asked me to interview her, like it was part of like, I want to talk about this and I'm ready to talk about it. Anyways, oh man, I almost got choked up just now. But she said something that just like has become a code, like something that is who I am. So Sarah, thank you for this. But she just said part of her overcoming that grief and that loss was every day I make a choice in the morning that I'm going to be bitter or be better. And then, and I wrote down like my personal note was always better, never bitter. And then that has become a mantra to me personally, always better, never bitter. And it's also become a family mantra. Like my daughter, she was thinking about getting a tattoo. She probably still might get it someday. And I'm like, honey, what's the tattoo gonna be? Like, just like, where's this gonna go? And she's like, better. Because that is a savage family, always better, never bitter. And it's a choice. So that's a tool that I use every single day. Not every minute, every day, but like always better, never better. Um, any thoughts on that, Chris, and any tools you want to throw out? And then we'll go around the circle here.
Yeah, so I connect to my burn, which is when my why and purpose ignite, and my burn is CJ. Right. So CJ was my son who passed away. I have a tattoo on my arm that literally says CJ's watching. And the way I feel about it is he sees everything I do, the good and the bad. So I better do more good than bad. And I live every day to make him proud. I in my journal every morning, it literally this first thing it says, I write every morning in my journal, it says, CJ is my burn. I will make him proud today. And I connect with that. And I know that a lot of good things that have happened in my life have been because he's been involved in that. Just like my son Leo, who's 11 months old, it was a very challenging delivery for my wife. We almost lost my wife in the delivery. I know he was part of that. And I know that Leo is part of his brother. So for me, it's connecting with my burn every day. That's what really makes sure first thing in the morning when I grab my journal, I write that out.
How do you help people find what their burn is?
It's a great question. Ben Newman was my coach who taught me that. And it really, your burn can change from time to time, but like a lot of my clients, their burn is their children, right? They want to make their children proud. Some of my clients, the burn is making more money, and that's okay. Whatever it is, it is. You know what I mean? But it's when your why and purpose ignite, it's something you go to in the toughest times, but also you go to when you win, because after we win, we kind of get a little lazy and fall back sometimes. So if I'm connecting with my burn, not getting seduced by success, then I'm going to keep pushing forward, right? Deborah, I could tell you your burn is those kids of yours, because I see them all over social media, and so my daughter's names, I have a Paxton and Townsend. Townsend's 31, Paxton's 25, and then Leo. So that's some decent, cool names, but your kids is next level names. Like, it's just the coolest thing ever.
Boss,
So I would say that,
legend.
yeah. Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say your burn is your kids, and that's your driving force to prove that mom is a boss. Watch what she can do. Watch what she's done through adversity. Look how she's overcome this. And I would say that's probably your burn if I just had to guess.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
I love this.
So I'm gonna throw out there a Phil Jones exactly what to say tool that Deborah and I teach in our certification, which is a simple swap. And I feel like oftentimes we're just getting stuck in our own head about the things that we have to do. And so I think it's just a simple swap of get to instead of have to, right? I mean, you get to call your clients, you get to call your realtors, you get to lead generate, you get to whatever that is. And there's so many things in life that, for better or worse, are an obligation, or we feel like we have to do it. It could just be even just going to visit a family member who said, hey, can you come visit me? And you're like, gosh, I don't really feel like that. I'd rather be doing something else. But you know what? You get to go do that and spend the time with that person. And so I think if you just, Jonathan Roach always talks about you have to make your voice choice, right? You can either stand at the podium and you can choose your negative voice, or you can choose your positive voice. And so I love this whole idea of the burn, right? I mean, it's what is that? That's kind of next level. But let's just go basic, right? For those of you who are struggling today, like, hey, what am I going to do after I get done watching this video or watching this live? It's, hey, you get to do whatever that is. You don't have to do it.
Guys, this call is just fire. So by the way, how many people are just like, I'm getting so much personal development myself and taking notes. If you're getting value from this call, give us a reaction. Love seeing those hearts. So Deborah, we're going to go to you, and then Chris, we're going to come back to you with any other concepts or tools. I did just share a link well, by the way, before I share this link, I do want to push people to sign up for the January exactly what to say certification program. I'm personally signed up. It's going to be January in Orange County. Literally, I don't know exactly how many minutes because I don't know if Todd's picked the location, but it's going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes from my house. And I am going to be asking Todd if one of the mornings I can lead a sunrise walk. So if you want to go to a very special, exactly what to say, 2-day workshop, this is the one. It will include a sunrise walk and talk with Todd and I and Deborah and whoever else is there. And so check it out, guys. The links
Well, let me
down
just say it's an absolute yes. I can't wait to do a sunrise walk. I did a dark walk. It was black, still a blackout in the sky when I've walked at the last couple in Dallas. And so yes, that'll be awesome. It's January 30th and 31st. We've got 7 early bird spots left. If you use the code EB for early bird 500, it'll save you $500 off. So you'll fly in on the 29th. We'll have a happy hour that night and then go all out for two full days. And it'll be, less than 20 people in the room, including Dave. And I got to imagine we're going to have some other amazing folks in there. So this is it. You guys are the first to hear about it. We haven't rolled it out, although I already did sell one other ticket besides Dave. So we don't, we have,
Well,
it's awesome. We're rolling.
someone sign up, and then Michelle Schumacher shared, "Thank you for this call. I had a horrible childhood. Me and my sis were too embarrassed to share. Working towards being brave to help others know they are not alone." And you can do
Thanks,
it.
Michelle.
So Michelle, thank you. That was high impact. So by the way, have a burn. And then I also wrote have a burn and have a selfish why and a purpose why. And I actually shared Jeremy's selfish why. It's a little 6-minute video. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put all these links down below. But watch that. And by the way, just if you want to know what Jeremy's selfish why is, he wants to be rich and fly private. And if you want to know his purpose why, it is good people deserve great advice. And I'm obsessed with impact. That's Jeremy's, purpose why and selfish why. Deborah, any concepts, tools you want to make sure people know about before we go back to Chris?
Well, I love what Michelle shared, and it reminds me of, we met at going to an event, and it's putting yourself in those paths of opportunities of who can you learn from and who are you going to rub elbows with. And at the Forward event, we heard Roy Vaden speak, and he talked about how you're best positioned to serve the person that you once were 5 years ago. So like, what are the things that your prior self needed to hear? And that's my big goal and purpose with social media. And I know social media gets a bad rap from counselors, therapists, teachers, parents, but I really believe, just like people say money can be the root of all evil, it can be an amplifier of good, and social can be the same way. You can leverage social for social good. So I always encourage people to hashtag social good. And instead of getting on there and only showing your highlight versions and when you have your hair and makeup done or whatever, be vulnerable and share the things that you could be struggling with, because when we do, it's actually those imperfections that give others permission, which, let's face it, right now, there's a lot of credit card debt. There's people who their only asset is their home. They don't know how to leverage the equity that's in there. They're paying ridiculous amounts towards interest, and they may feel shame and guilt and embarrassment to raise their hand and say, I need advice. Like, I need to know what to do. I'm months away of not being able to pay my bills. And it just feels like I can't get out from under. And so when you show you're not perfect, which the last time I checked, I haven't met a perfect human, so we're all flawed, it allows them to connect with you and to raise their hand and just say, hey, I actually need help. So lean into that vulnerability and know that you're creating these little pathways of connection when you do. And let's stop with the perfectionism and comparisonitis. And I was guilty of that for many years. I've shared that before, where having an identical twin, everyone always wants y'all to be just alike. And, we weren't always just alike. Like, I like to color outside the lines a little bit. And I felt like I had to be a little bit more, conservative to fit.
A little bit. You've definitely you've definitely overcome any insecurities you have about coloring outside the lines, girl.
I
Just
mean, but I was self-sabotaging and, you know, like you don't see it when you're in it until you then have some self-awareness and some practice and a lot of pain and a lot of thousands of dollars in therapy and coaching, where it got me finally to be true to who I am, where now I know I'm loved for who I am, not because I'm the nerd sister or a version of the nerd that's not really me. So show up and be you is the point to my message.
beautiful message. Let's give her a heart. So Chris, let's do this. One, I want to make sure everybody knows about your book so that, you know, like
Mhm.
I love you. I want to reread that book. You know, in all confessions, because I'm ADD and dyslexic, and like really full on reading a book is a very big lift for me. I do a lot more audiobooks. And so I had scanned it. But I'm gonna dig in and really read it because you've inspired me today. But for people listening to this, give us, you know, tell us like why should a mortgage professional right now, like it's November of 2024. We got to kill it big in 25. Like why should we get your book and read your book?
I mean, I think it just helps you get clarity on the circles you need to grow and where you want to grow to. Like, I think too many times we're just not sure where we want to go. So they have the One Jordan. If you buy the book, you scan the QR code, you get the One Jordan method along with it, and it'll literally teach you how to create your own One Jordan list. Okay, and when you do that, it'll give you some clarity on what you want to change and upgrade your circle to be. If you're underperforming right now in this market, maybe you're in the wrong circle, right? Because maybe there's a lot of people underperforming around you. So find people that are performing at a higher level and get with them, whether it's through mentorship, whether it's through coaching, whatever it's through. But I think the book will give you that strategy to do it. I know it did it for me. That's why I wrote a book. Was never the guy to write a book. My dad wrote several books, but I was not the guy you would think wrote a book. I got it almost perfect in math on my SAT, but you don't want to know what I got on the rest of the SAT. Okay. Like, so people were amazed when I wrote a book. I saw some family friends the other day from when I was a kid, and Mrs. Hall's like, "You wrote a book?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wrote a book." And actually, Mrs. Hall, it was a bestseller, and it was on a billboard in Times Square back in June. But just it's okay. Like, you don't have to believe me. Like,
So
but
go buy
yeah.
it.
So I would say that would be the big thing. And real quick, just I'm very dedicated to my morning routine. Like, I do my morning routine like a madman because it sets the tone for the day. I do this thing called the undefeated morning where I stack 5 or 6 wins before I pick up my phone. Okay. Like, so if you're not following me on Instagram, or if you are following me on Instagram, if you want to send me, just type in mortgage coach in a DM, and then I'll send you the undefeated morning blueprint. That's not a bot doing that. I'll do it myself or have my assistant do it. And you're not going to get sucked into some kind of vortex of a bunch of drip campaign emails for that. If you want to do that, you can type undefeated and go to the undefeated group or whatever, but that's just a freebie for you. But for me, it's stacking 6 or 7 wins before I pick up my phone. Because as soon as I pick up my phone, I learned this in 2020, I take on the world's problems, and then I never get my day started.
So by the way, I want to make sure people got
Unless you
it.
send 5 DMs that are gratitude DMs.
Hey,
Yeah.
I
That
want
sounds like
to
winning by 7 a.m., Dave.
yeah, I know. Hey, I'm at you on Instagram, Chris. Are you saying PM you
Yeah, yeah,
undefeated?
yep. Send me a message. Just put mortgage coach in there, and I'll take care. I'll get you
Oh,
what you
put
need.
mortgage coach. Okay, put
Yep. So I know
mortgage
where you
coach.
came from. Yep.
Okay, so I'm putting
It's
mortgage
called
coach in there.
DM on Instagram
It is. Yeah.
on the
Didn't
gram.
I say DM? Or did I
You
say
said
that? Okay.
PM.
Oh, whatever. So, all right. So, guys, the way you say thank you if you got value from this, and if you watch the whole call, you got value. Um, like this guy, follow this guy, you know, at a minimum, get his undefeated list, how to win the morning. You know, you all know we're pretty big on mornings. We're pretty big on winning by noon in this group. And by the way, that's another, like, add this to the checklist. Like, if you do not have, call it a miracle morning, you know, I call it an undefeated morning, call it a winning morning. You cannot turn adversity into an opportunity I don't believe, without really solid morning protocols that you do consistently that feed your heart, make you better, never better, always better. Hopefully, you guys got some ideas that are going to add value to you today. I hope to see some of you at Todd's and Deborah's exactly what to say 2-day personal certification. If you're on this call and you are not a mortgage coach or you don't know what Trust Engine is, make sure you go to trustengine.com/10x. You could sign up to be an individual mortgage coach, or you want to get a demo and get the whole Trust Engine platform and how to do more loans in less time. Check it out. Chris, dude, got to know you a lot better. And by the way, when you described your book, I'm gonna make my one Jordan list and figure out who I'm gonna interview next year. And you help me like that. And if you are watching this and there's someone you want me to interview, whether they're in the mortgage industry or outside the mortgage industry, and you want to add to my one Jordan list, DM me, PM me, message me, put a comment down below. Just make sure I know about it. Hey guys, this is a wrap. Have a great weekend, everybody. Go Denver. Let's take the Chiefs out. We do not need the Chiefs going undefeated this year.
No.
By the way, does everybody in America except for Chief fans want Denver to win this week? Heck yeah. Let's go.
I think so.
No.
The same number of
Nope.
people who want the Eagles to win this week. Go Birds.
Now, come on,
Nope.
dude. That's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Trash.
Yeah.
All right.
Take
See
care,
you, Chris.
everybody.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
one.
Hey, guys. Thank you.
Take care.